I want to get your thoughts before we hop into today's edition of the Bulls Report. Do you think the Bulls will make the playoffs in the 2023-2024 NBA season? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. This is going to be a big season, ladies and gentlemen, for our Chicago Bulls. And on today's edition of the Bulls Report, we're going to be looking at what some of these changes could mean for the Chicago Bulls moving on in the future. I think no doubt this is one of the biggest seasons in this franchise's history over the recent memory. And I do think specifically the first half of this season is going to be so huge, because I think once that next season's NBA trade deadline rolls around, I think the Bulls are going to have a lot of decisions that they need to make. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over what two options could look like for the Bulls with a bad start and a good start. With the two options being, obviously, a bad start, I think that means the Bulls are going to be trading everyone. I've said it a couple times on a couple of recent episodes of the Bulls Report that, if the Bulls do start off bad, and let's just say they're 3-5 games below 500 at the NBA trade deadline, I think that could mean that they could trade everybody. But let's look on the opposite side of it. Let's just say if they start the season great and they are shocking the NBA world, could they go all in? We're also going to look at three names that I think that they could trade for if they do have a good start. But let's start off with the bad start. I do think it could be a fire sale if the Bulls do end up, struggling at the first half of this NBA season. That's why I think changes, no matter what, are going to happen for this Bulls roster. And I think if the Bulls, let's just say worst case scenario, that they're 10 games below 500, they don't even have an outside chance at the playoffs, I think it could be everybody on the roster is moved. And we're going to go through 5 trade pieces that the Bulls have that I think that could be on the move. Starting with number 1, it's got to be number 8. It's got to be the best player on the Bulls. It's got to be Zach LaVine. His name has been connected to the New York Knicks. We've heard the Sacramento Kings could want him. I just don't – I wouldn't want to move off LaVine, even if the Bulls are bad. I think he's somebody you could build around, but, he would get you the most out of any trade, and I think his trade value could be 2 firsts and maybe a young player. We've heard the New York Knicks rumors where it's they could possibly get R.J. Barrett, Evan Fournier, and multiple first-round picks. I wouldn't be opposed to that. And I will make this point about these trade values. I'm assuming this is at next year's trade deadline. So it's not right now, but it's at next year's trade deadline. So obviously with LaVine, you don't get him for the first half of the year. So I think it diminishes his trade value just a little bit. But also you could take the other side of it. You could be other teams could have a sense of urgency if they're trying to go win an NBA championship. But I'll go to his trade value at probably 2 first-round picks and maybe a young player. Number 2 for the Bulls as some trade pieces here, it's got to be Nikola Vucevic. Obviously, you can't trade him now with him signing that extension during the offseason, but I do think Vuce has some trade value. I just don't know what team would potentially want to trade for him, but I think you could probably get 1 first-round pick and maybe a player. And this first, I will say, for Vuce, I would hope it would be unprotected. Maybe you send him to, what if the Pacers move off Miles Turner and they want to bring in another center? They could possibly want Vuce. The center position in the NBA, kind of compare it to the running back position in the NFL. Unless you have one of those top dogs like Embiid or Jokic, I just don't really think there is too much value in consolidating your assets into that center spot. So I think a first-round pick and maybe a player for Vuce could get it done. I would at least just give me the first for Vuce, and we could be A-okay. Number 3 is the last member of the big 3, and that's DeMar DeRozan. And this is an interesting one because DeMar is on an expiring deal, but I do also think DeMar could be extremely enticing for a championship contending team. So that's why I'm going to go kind of in the middle. I'm going to go just 1 first for DeMar because a team trading for him, you're only going to get him for that rest of the year. He is on a 1-year expiring deal for the Chicago Bulls, but a very favorable contract. I think it's around $28 million a year. So I don't know. I don't think a team would toss up 2 firsts for DeMar. Maybe it's 1 first and 1 heavily protected, but I do think you could get at least 1 first-round pick for DeMar DeRozan. He's one of those where it's I really have no idea what the value could be. It could be, if the Bulls get a second for him, I wouldn't necessarily be too shocked, but I would be very upset about that. So I go 1 first for DeMar's trade value at next year's trade deadline. Number 4 is Alex Caruso. I think these 4, no matter what, if the Bulls are struggling, there's just no need to keep either one of these guys. a guy like Caruso, like he would be so valuable on a championship team just because of that connecting piece he is offensively. Then he's also one of the best defensive guards. I think he's the best defensive guard in the entire NBA. So I got his trade value at 1 first. I think, you could fetch a first for Alex Caruso. He's on an extremely favorable deal. He's on the mid-level exception from a couple years ago, so it's around $9 million. So overall, I think you could get 1 first for Caruso. And let's just say you do trade all these guys and you're sitting around and you're like, oh, the Bulls went from having no draft picks. Now we got 4 draft picks, 5 draft picks, and a young player. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if the Bulls do end up sucking. And then the last one is Tory Craig. Tory Craig, we signed him for the vet min. Definition of a 3-and-D basketball player. And I think you could possibly get something for Tory Craig. Listen, I don't think you could get a first-round pick, but you could fetch a second for Tory Craig, like maybe a team, maybe the Suns want him back. They're competing for a championship, and they say, let's go all in on this year. Let's go bring back Tory Craig here. Maybe you could fetch a second-round pick for him. Those are 5 names I think the Bulls could possibly move off of. LaVine, DeRozan, Vooch, Caruso, and Tory Craig. You combine that all up, I think you could probably get 4 or 5 first-round picks, a second, and maybe 1 or 2 young players if you move off all of those guys. But now let's switch it. Let's get optimistic. Let's have fun with this. Let's just say the Bulls could be buyers next season if they are crushing it and shocking the NBA world, but it is very unlikely that this is going to happen. Even if the Bulls, let's say, 5 games above 500, I still think it's very unlikely that they could potentially be buyers at the next year's NBA trade deadline. Just because, one, they got a lot of dudes on this roster who are going to get minutes. Like, you have the starting lineup of, I'll just put Javon Carter at 1 right now. Carter, DeRozan, LaVine, P-Dub, and Vooch. Those 5 are all getting minutes if you are contending next season. Then you got dudes off the bench like Caruso, Ayo, Kobe White, Tory Craig, Andre Drummond. You got 10 guys right there that I just named off. And I'm not even talking about like Julian Phillips, our first or second round pick from this past draft. So again, very unlikely that the Bulls are buyers at all. But I got 3 trade targets that could possibly go down. Number 1 for me would be Dougie McBuckets. Bring back Doug McDermott. I would absolutely love it. I think he would fit a kind of player style of need, like a player archetype of need of kind of being that true scoring forward off the bench, or just true scoring forward at all. Because obviously, like, DeRozan and LaVine, more guard scoring archetypes in the league. But Doug McDermott, I mean, with his 6'8", 6'9" frame, incredible pick and pop threat, incredible catch and shoot guy as well. He's a guy I could see the Bulls possibly trading for at next year's deadline. And then this one, Tyus Jones. He was just sent to the Washington Wizards. I think Tyus Jones is the best backup point guard in the NBA when he was with Memphis. I think he could have been starting for most NBA teams over the past couple of years. I think he's one of those guys that's kind of a hidden gem in the NBA right now. But if you were to kind of perform this trade, think maybe this would be like the Bulls moving off like Javon Carter or something, like move off one of those guards to go get Tyus Jones. The reason I do have him on this list is because the Bulls still have that need for that true point guard, and that's Tyus. Like, Tyus plays a true point guard better than almost anybody in the modern day game. So he's somebody to keep your eyes out for. And then this is the whale. This would be the big one, Pascal Siakam. Again, extremely unlikely. But let's just say the Raptors are struggling. Because I do think the Bulls and Raptors are in very similar positions where it's like, where the next year's NBA trade deadline is going to come around, and one team could be buyers and one team could be sellers. So in this dream scenario for me, the Bulls are buyers and the Raptors are sellers. Who says the Bulls don't decide to throw them, like, I don't know, maybe you throw them Patrick Williams, who maybe hasn't taken that next step because of DeRozan and LaVine, taking most of the love there, most of the shot attempts in Chicago. Maybe they say, hey, we'll throw you Patrick Williams and 2 firsts, and we get Pascal Siakam in the building. Something to keep your eyes on. But overall, to conclude, whatever happens this year for the Chicago Bulls, changes will come. I think this is a very pivotal season for the team where it's either going to be like, hey, we are doubling down on what we are kind of doing here in terms of like, hey, we are going to go all in and kind of push all our chips to the center of our table and make additions to our roster. Or it could be the complete opposite where we're looking at like this time next year and we're talking at the Bulls and there's no LaVine, no DeRozan, no Vooch. Who knows could be on this roster. This is going to be a very big year for the Bulls, so that's why you guys got to make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Keep us in the loop. No matter what it is, anything around the Chicago Bulls, we will keep you guys posted. And I do want to bring back on Chip because we did this last video. And what we're doing at the end of each Chicago Bulls YouTube video here moving forward, me and Chip, or whoever the producer is at the time, we're going to both name a random current NBA player and hoping we can both fall on the same name at the same time. The first time we did this, I said De'Aaron Fox, and Chip said Harrison Barnes. I can't believe that happened.
It was wild.
Why? Like
first try, too.
Two guys on the same team last season. So, all right, I think I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I got mine.
I think I'm ready to go. All right, you want to count us down?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
Bobby
Portis.
Oh, Bobby Portis is a good one. That's a good one.
I
went Jaden Ivey. I like the Bobby Portis pick. But, hey, comment down below. If you guys comment Jaden Ivey or Bobby Portis, I will give you guys a shout-out. I'm waiting for that moment. It's going to be such a good feeling when we say the same name at the same time. I can't freaking wait. But thank you guys so much for watching today's edition of the Bulls Report. We will see you guys next time.